How's it going, guys? So I have a bunch of topics to discuss today. We're going to mix it up with some different segments and kind of touch a lot of different ground, but the general overall theme of this video is mainly talking about budget gear, how to score it, is it worth it, are off-brands worth the money, how to get good sounds on the cheap, and a lot of things that I discovered over my last little bit of this journey. So jumping right into it, the context for this video is I had a open mic gig last night. I had the opportunity to play some songs for a Irish themed open mic, and I was using the gear that I've had at home for a while, including this guitar that I picked up yesterday. So this is a really fun Telly style guitar from Oscar Schmidt. It's an inexpensive guitar that's built pretty well. The body nice and heavy. It's got a belly cut on the back, but the top is normal Telly type contours, traditional single coil pickups, maple neck, rosewood fretboard, and it's got a really great feel. And the reason I'm so excited about this is I only paid $145 and this came new off the wall. What was going on is a buddy of mine has been running the local music store in my small town for years and years, and some of the other competitors slowly went out of business and he was the last remaining shop. And he's still going to be in business as mostly as a luthier and doing lessons, but he still had a couple guitars on the wall, and that's where I picked this up, and I really am enjoying it. And I was playing some kind of punk themed tunes, and the clang from a traditional Telly style guitar really brought what I was looking for to the table. So I'll show you the tone that I came up with. It's this overdriven tone. I'm using my Donner Greenland preamp on the red channel, which is the Marshall JTM 45, with my Joyo Ultimate Drive, which is an OCD clone. Those two pedals together are only cost me $62, $22 for the Ultimate Drive new and $40 for the Greenland used. I also use an EQ, a Donner Graphic EQ 6-band, and I just shape it a little bit because this is running a cab sim into this Carvin acoustic PA amp. But anyway, all those details aside, this is the tone I came up with for the main rhythm sound. So it's got that great Marshall punch kind of mid-range, but it's got the clang from the bridge pickup of the Telly that I'm really enjoying. I mean, here's that same tone without the overdrive. Now, to my ears, that tone is virtually perfect. I mean, I showed up and played a gig, and I also ran this setup into the PA as it was through a DI box, and it sounded great through that because this has the cab sim. And I was able to achieve a very workable, usable tone without having to have a big, expensive tube amp. I was playing at a reasonable volume. This was like a 50, 60 person attended show. It really wasn't a lot of space to be cranking a big amp. I mean, we're even using an E-kit live at that venue, just to keep the volume down. But I'm getting this killer sound, and everything combined is only a couple $100 worth of gear. And so the point that I was trying to make is that with some experience and some trial and error, you can come up with really good sounds on the cheap. You don't have to have all the latest boutique, high-end, handmade in the USA gear to get a good sound. Barring the amp, virtually everything was made in China. The guitar's made in China, pedals made in China. And the quality of the gear almost doesn't matter at this point. I'm able to get the sound I want. I get all the touch and articulation. the note definition is there. The chords sound big and full, even when I was doing the open chords. And yeah, the only thing I did to this guitar before I played it live, I bought it right before, is I slapped a set of Diodario 10s on there. And you know, those aren't expensive strings. It's just the regular, not the NYXL, not coated, not anything fancy. I just went from the stock 9 gauge strings to 10 gauge strings for a little extra snap and articulation and punch and just the feel. What I found is that if I really attack the low strings hard when it's a set of 9, so 42 to 9, the low strings, they have a hard time staying in tune when you really attack it hard. I mean, you can do it, it's just a little tricky. And yeah, I was really happy with this tone. And so this guitar is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Bang for the buck, off-brand, still good build quality. Now you can get lemons, and this is why I recommend buying guitars in person if you absolutely can. You know, do your OfferUp, Craigslist, Guitar Center used, even get inside a Guitar Center and try a couple Squires or whatever it is for low-end guitars. You can buy online and you can use return policy and you might not get burned. But what I found for me is that I really prefer to play a guitar first, and you can get a better feel for if the frets are going to need work, is the neck going to need some work. And sometimes, you know, a guitar in the store, if it's not set up for your playing style, it can be hard to decipher what's going on. The only other change I made is I slightly adjusted the bridge saddles to even out the heights, as the heights were slightly higher after the thicker gauge strings. But I didn't have to do much. Like, I didn't adjust the truss rod, I didn't change heights on the pickups, I didn't have to swap out parts or anything. And it really, what it comes down to is I knew that my rig was going to work well, and this was the only thing I needed, was these punchy single coil pickups, the traditional style Fender pickups. Now, for your straight up like gent or metal, this might not be the perfect guitar, but for all around rock, blues, pop, country, you can cover a lot of ground with this guitar and still get a good sound. And not only this guitar, I have another guitar I'm going to show off in a little bit that I got for really cheap that also does the job really well. But part of it is the design of the Tele from day one is so classic and so perfect. It really didn't need a lot of refining. I mean, the way these pickups are voiced and the way they're made is virtually identical to the way they were made in 1950, almost 70 years ago. And it just goes to show how good Leo Fender did designing the original Teles, the original Fender Teles. And just the layout, you know, all the different tones that it's capable of. You know, I can go to like jazzy territory with this Tele too. Like, slip it into the neck pickup, maybe roll off the tone a little bit. You know, get some cool tones with both pickups together. The bridge pickup, it's got that nice. Yeah, and because, you know, because it's not something that's super high-end and boutique and really stretched my wallet, I can just rock out on stage. I'll include a clip of the show to just show what was going on, just really attacking those strings and, you know, rocking out and not being afraid about beating up a perfectly like a high-end guitar. I mean, with a cheaper guitar, if it gets dinged up, if it gets bumped by other guitars or gets, you know, falls off its stand, you're not crying about it or worried about the repercussions. You know, that's what's one of the biggest benefits about budget gear. But also, you get 99% of the way there of what you would get from a high-end instrument. I mean, yeah, some of the fit and finish details on a high-end instrument make it worth the price. But a lot of times you can just go to a luthier and get a setup on a cheaper guitar, as long as there's not any major fret issues or build quality issues. I mean, those guitars will set up just great and you'll have a great player. And that's kind of been my thing. And as far as the pedals and the rest of the rig goes, I mean, you can get all kinds of different sounds for all different kinds of music now for really cheap. Just do a little research, a little digging and experimenting, and you get a really good sound. You know, I got that rock sound with just those couple pedals, and I really like it. You know, the other song on the set was "I Will Follow" by U2, and it had you know, a little delay, and then it's just and then a kick on the overdrive. But yeah, no, I just am really stoked on this setup, and what you can get for your money these days is just insane. What it really comes down to is, like I said, getting proper strings on there, doing a little bit of adjustment either to the bridge or the neck through the truss rod, and you have a great player. And no one should be afraid or elitist about trying budget gear. I mean, yes, there was a time, and there still is some garbage out there that you'll get. You'll get the one guitar that slipped through QC and just wasn't playable and wasn't great. But I've seen that on more expensive guitars too. I've played guitars at Guitar Center above $1,000 that were virtually unplayable in their current state. Strings are shot, action is like an inch off the fretboard, neck's all out of whack, and you can't even tell if it's a good guitar or not because it's not even playable. So a lot of it just comes to luck of the draw. Sometimes you get lucky with a guitar, you know, and it just takes some experimenting to find that sweet spot. But I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my other guitars and tell you kind of the story behind that. So I got this obviously from that music store. Worked out great for the gig I was doing. I'm going to tell the story of another guitar and kind of the benefits of using Craigslist and used markets and doing trades, and I think you'll find that really interesting. So check it out. So this guitar is one that I got through a trade deal, and this one is really great. So you can see some of the contours here. You can see my sticker, "Hello, my name is," and I left it blank. You can see there's an EMG pickup here in the bridge, and there's only 2 knobs here and no switch. And here's it on the back. It's a bolt-on maple neck Les Paul style scale guitar. Check out this headstock. It has absolutely straight string pull. So what this guitar is a Jackson JS22 Monarch that started its life. These are like $200 new guitars, and it came with the stock pickups. And what I was doing is I was trying to unload a pedal I had bought. It was the Ernie Ball Expression Overdrive. I got it for really cheap. I got it for $70. And I was trying to sell it for $80 after trying it, found out it wasn't for me. And so I decided to flip that. And after trying to just sell it outright, I started offering trade deals, and a local guy said, "Hey, I'll trade you, are you interested in trading for this guitar for it?" And he sent me a link to his posting on Craigslist. And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "How about I throw $50 at it?" So my pedal and $50, he was asking $120. I figured that was super reasonable. And so I ended up with it, right? And I tried the stock pickups as they were. They weren't awful. They were a little high output, a little muddy, not a lot of definition in the strings, but I already knew I had been planning on doing a hot rod guitar that was a single EMG 81, and I knew that if I bought the EMG 81 from Guitar Center, it comes with all the parts in the kit so that you can do a solderless install, because I've done this on other guitars in the past. So I took out, there's actually nothing behind this sticker. There's no pickup in there. I do have the ring on there still, just because I had covered it with white electrical tape, just because aesthetically I didn't want to leave it open. I thought it would be really ugly, but I have my sticker covering it. And so all it's actually wired up right now is this bridge pickup and this volume knob. Like I said, the switch is gone. This is a dummy pot. I just left it in there for now because really it's out of my way. Someday aesthetically I'll probably cover both these knobs so it'll be even cleaner looking. But this is a fantastic player. So after playing the guitar, I loved it. It's got a bound neck, and it just already was a great bang for the buck guitar, even new. But for me, it was me getting a hot rod metal guitar for as cheaply as possible and being able to build it out and mod it. And the point of what I want to talk about here is, when should you mod a guitar? And what I mean by that is, how much should a guitar cost or be worth for you to dump a bunch of extra money into parts that you may or may not be adding resale value to? So it really comes down to the situation. So for me, I had already bought the pedal. I was sitting on it. It was basically worthless to me. Add another $50 to it, got the guitar, waited a little bit, threw the pickup in there. That's $100, maybe even cheaper on sale. But for a total of investment of $220, I got a metal guitar that I just love. So right now it's in a custom drop B tuning. And that B tuning is B, F sharp, B, F sharp, B, B. So, and the reason I came up with that is the same gig that I was playing last night. I did a closer song that was kind of a B minor vamp, and what I wanted to do was to be able to click on the ambient stuff and just do some trippy things in B. And I already put a nice set of Diodario NYXLs 56 to 11, setting this originally up for drop C. It is Les Paul scale, so I have to be careful about getting too much flub in the low end. But the benefit of the active EMG pickup is that it compresses the low end in a very nice way. So you still have a lot of definition even with it being that low. And of course, EMGs sound great clean. So I got a lot of cool sounds out of that. And this guitar, I put it together for cheap, and it was worth it for me because it was already such a good guitar that throwing a pickup in it wasn't the end of the world. Now, had I decided to go a full EMG install, so both pickups, and bought their solderless switch, that's a lot more expensive. So that set comes out to about $200, and the switch I think is about 30 or 40. So, I was only in the guitar 120. To put 240 into mods, for me, wasn't worth it. Now, for some of you, the situation may be different. Like, you may just absolutely love this inexpensive guitar and you want to make it all that it could be. You need both pickups. You need to do the full install. That's great. My goal was to keep it as budget-friendly as possible. I wanted the resale value to potentially still be there, but I wanted a hot rod that I can make my own without worrying about affecting the value. Say if the guitar came with Seymour Duncans. Seymour Duncans are great pickups, but I wanted the EMGs. I would end up gutting those and spending a bunch of money when I should have just bought a guitar that came with EMGs. And I think that's the differentiation. So for me in the past, what I discovered is that for a lot of guitars, especially cheaper guitars, I would try not to mod them too much so as not to be sinking a bunch of money that I could just put into a different guitar. If I want a different sound, I should just buy a different guitar at that point. I can get cool guitars for cheap, like my Tele, like this guitar, like my other Squier guitar. There's no reason for me to go out and spend a ton of money if I don't have to. And so for me, it was always, can I live with the guitar how it is, the way it is? Do I need the money for another guitar? Okay, I'll sell the guitar to get something that's closer to the sound I want. But if it's something subtle like this, like I wanted a guitar I can make my own and just have to screw around on as a hot rod machine, and I love the look and everything about this guitar. The straight string pull, the way it held tension and tuning. It really wasn't a tough call to say, I'll sink a little money into the pickup. But if you start doing a ton of mods, like a lot of these guitars sometimes will come with cheaper hardware. Fortunately, the Tune-o-matic and bridge tailpiece on this really don't feel too cheap. The tuners I definitely would swap, but you start sinking, $400 of parts into a $200 guitar, you probably would have been better off taking that same 600 and investing in a nicer guitar. But say it's a sentimental value guitar, or it's a first guitar that you're never going to get rid of, spend all the money you want. But I think everyone's situation is different. I just know in the past I made a lot of mistakes like this. Like, I would spend so much on upgrades, then finally just end up getting rid of the guitar, but I never got back. Every time you do a pickup install, if you can't do it yourself, it's $50 a pickup, and sometimes they'll cut you a deal on both. But you're talking $100 just to put pickups in there. If you do that 4 times, that's $400 just in labor. And I did that on one of my guitars, and I'll probably talk about that at some point in the future. But that taught me a lot about different pickups, because I was using that guitar as a test bed before I was investing in sets of pickups for my custom guitars that I was having built. So there was a good reason behind it. It wasn't all just a waste of money and time. But I would say, like, for the budget guitars, if you can do 1 or 2 simple mods that make it do exactly what you want, go for it. But ultimately, if you're feeling like it's just not really there, I would take all the money you were going to spend on mods and parts, put it towards a nicer guitar, because you can always sell that guitar that's not working for you, or leave it how it is. And that's what I usually try to do. I try to buy something like this Telly, where as it is, I don't really need to change anything. Maybe I'll change the color of the pickguard or something really simple, but I'm not gonna spend $300 on parts for that. I like it just how it is. I can live with how it is with the pickups and everything, and it just works. And bang for the buck guitars, that's what it should be about. It shouldn't be about, I remember reading on forums, a guy had bought a guitar used and then changed the neck, change every piece of hardware, change every pickups. It's like, at that point, dude, you should have just bought a different guitar. Why are you going to sink $1,000 and hours of time into changing something that doesn't necessarily need to be changed? I would just buy a different guitar. But that's just me. I don't have a lot of sentimental attachment to most guitars, so for me it's a different kind of scenario, but that's just my philosophy behind it. I've owned hundreds and hundreds of guitars at this point, just buying, selling, trading, constantly, going for different sounds, different styles, trying to get involved in different kinds of music, different tunings. At one point I had 17 guitars, because I had all these different tunings and styles that I liked playing on them. I had 6, 7, and 8s, and I had different guitars set up for different tunings. And that can be a little overwhelming. But also think about it too, if you're going to be keeping fresh strings on a guitar, get something that you're actually going to use, to where you're not wasting your money on strings. So that was one of my things when I had too many guitars, is that even changing strings 6 times a year, and the strings I was using was NYXLs at the time, so it's $10 to $12. $70 a year at least into strings for a guitar that I paid $200 for. Over time, that doesn't work out, especially if I barely play it. But it really, I'm not your financial advisor. I'm just trying to tell you about mistakes I've made and try and save you some hassle, and help you in your future endeavors as a bedroom rocking guitar player looking to pick up cool gear. Because it's great to get a gear fix for a little bit of money. You have lots of bills, you got overhead. Being able to get a good gear fix out of a couple $100 like this feels and plays great. I played it on stage. I had no regrets, no shame. And again, it was cheap enough that I felt like I could really rock out with it and not hold back, because I wasn't worried about dinging it up or scratching it up or anything. You can just go for it. And I think that's really critical. And every situation is different, but, I hope you understand, the journey for some of these guitars. This was a particular journey. Yes, I could have taken my 220 and bought a different guitar. Maybe I could have waited a few months and put all my money together and got some different guitars. But I saw different opportunities. I knew what I was looking for. I have a list kind of mentally of things that I would like to acquire. For me, I'm still looking for a 7, 8, and 9 string that I can get affordably to add into my collection. I would like to have a Strat, I'm actively looking for a Squire Strat that I can get for cheap. Stuff like that. Like, I know kind of what I want and what I'm after, and this was exactly what I was after. The aesthetic actually really mirrors a guitar from the Azalea Dying guitar player that I was a huge fan of, Nick Hoffa, I think is his name. But yeah, Nick from Azalea Dying, he had a white Ibanez Les Paul that looked just like this, and EMG 81, it gets you that straight metal sound, and it's unique and cool enough that I really love it, and it just works for me. And it's one of those cool finds. It's a situation that worked out exactly right. I took advantage of the ability to trade. You can't always take advantage of trades just exclusively online, but use whatever tools are available in your area. I talk to people on forums that are international. They have to buy stuff blind a lot of times, and that's scary. But they work it out and they make it happen. But and there's nothing wrong with high-end gear. There's nothing wrong with expensive guitars by any means. If you have the budget, if it's something you love, go for it. But at this point, I don't have tons of cash, so I'm just trying to cover my bases. $1,500 for a USA Tele isn't going to get me that much further for my needs and my wanting to rock out on a Tele than my $145 guitar, right? But for some of you, you have the money, you have the ability, and like I said, go for it. If you have a dream guitar, I'm not holding you back. I've owned what was my dream guitars at one point, my Music Man Ernie Ball JP7s that I used to own. But after owning them, they weren't for me, and I was always afraid of hurting them, and the mods were getting expensive, and I didn't want to jack up the electronic circuits that they had and stuff like that. So it was like, you sometimes just got to make a call and be like, okay, I thought this guitar was going to work out. It's not. Offload it, try not to lose any money. But this is just fun. This is the cost of an expensive pedal. Just a whole guitar, fully customized, the cost of a nice pedal. That's insane to me, And I'm able to get my kicks and get good sounds and just keep rocking. Subscribe. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. I'm trying to do longer form videos, but also mix up the content so it's interesting for everyone and include a variety of topics in some of these videos. So I tried to cover, bang for the buck, off-brand gear, Craigslist deals, trades, modding, all the different territory that goes into buying and owning budget guitars, And again, one thing I want to highlight, the biggest thing for me with a budget guitar is maintaining fresh strings, because you're always going to get a pretty good sound if you put on a fresh set of strings on a guitar. And also setup, making sure that you get your guitars properly set up or adjust them yourselves to fit the tunings and string gauges that you're using. I think that's huge. Like getting a guitar that's very playable, like not just leaving it how it came off the rack, super critical. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.